pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have roll call, please?
Chairman Williams.
Here.
Vice Chairman Shavir.
Here.
Secretary Chambers.
Here.
Dr. Faison. Member Baker. Member Ritchie.
Here.
School Board Member Hare.
Okay, and we have quorum. Next is approval of minutes for August 2nd, 2017.
I move that we approve the minutes from August 2nd.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All persons who anticipate speaking on any public hearing item must first fill out the oath card to be heard on the agenda item and sign the oath card contained thereon. These cards are located on the table near the entrance, I think they were back there, to the council chamber, or may be obtained from the recording secretary. This meeting will be conducted in accordance to procedures adopted in Resolution 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first. Those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make a public comment on an item will speak third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. A representative from either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. If anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents you desire the commission to consider, they must be submitted into evidence and will be retained by the city. Please submit such exhibits to the recording secretary. Staff, has the item come before us been properly advertised?
Yes, it has.
And has anybody on the commission had the opportunity to visit the site or talk to anybody in the public about the item coming before us? No? With that, we'll go to the one and only item.
Okay, so the in your agenda packet, the item starts on page 7, but I'm going to be providing you information from the staff report, which begins on page 9 in your packet. The applicant, Riding Honeycutt, on behalf of the owner, Garden Street Investors, LLC, is requesting to rezone approximately 32.83 acre portion of a larger 80.66 acre property located at the northwest corner of Garden Street and Interstate 95. The request is to rezone the property from the multifamily medium-density residential R2 zoning district to the single-family high-density R1C zoning district within the comprehensive plan future land use designation of medium-density residential. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow the development of a single-family subdivision. On the next page, which is page 10 of your packet or page 2 of the staff report, just a little background on this portion that they are requesting to rezone. The 32.83 acre portion of the property is currently zoned R2, and the R2 zoning was applied to the portion of the property by ordinance number 8-2007 by a comprehensive plan amendment known as Falcon Woods. Based on the staff report from that comprehensive plan amendment, the R2 zoning was requested on this 32 acre portion in order to establish 288 unit apartment complex along with a subdivision of 138 homes on the remainder of the property, which is zoned R1B. This property is located within the city's area of critical concern. The area of critical concern and the associated regulations were created to protect the city's well fields and the aquifer recharge areas, and that overlay, that area of critical concern, requires that all new single-family subdivisions contain lots with a minimum of 10,000 square feet. Each lot has to be 10,000 square feet in size, excluding retention ponds. No concept plan was submitted with this request, but the applicant has been made aware of this requirement, and so they are aware of that. Just to provide a little background, if you go to page 14, there's a map on that page. So like I said before, the total property is approximately 80 acres. On page 14, you'll see a map that has two different kind of hatch patterns on it. The darker crosshatch portion that's marked R2, that is the portion of this property that's subject of the rezoning. The remainder of that property with the light gray hatch marks on it, that's just the remainder of the property. So I wanted to include that this illustration in there to show you that there are two separate there's two separate zoning designations, actually 3. There's some open space and recreation as well on the property, but just to give a general location as to where the rezoning is occurring on the property. With that, I'll try to answer any questions that you have, and the applicant is here as well.
Okay. Let's go ahead and open this up to the public. Can we have the first card on this, please?
Rodney Honeycutt.
Mr. Honeycutt.
Good evening, Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue, right here in Titusville. And so, as staff explained, the request for rezoning is for single-family subdivision. It's currently zoned for a multifamily subdivision. The site is in the area of critical concern, so the minimum size lot is 10,000 square feet. We understand that. If it remains multifamily, then there is no minimum lot size in a multifamily. It's just restricted by total impervious area in the area of critical concern. And so a project could have 3-story structures in multifamily, 35 feet, and so you probably could meet the density there, but it's hard to meet it in an what we have proposed with the 10,000 square feet minimum. And I'm just going over this particularly to let you know the density, how it relates, and maybe even some people that are in the public too. The allowable density in the proposed zoning is 5.69 units per acre. However, that's with a 65 by 100 square foot lot. These lots are 10,000 square feet. And on a concept plan that we've been working on, you actually end up with about 2.2 units per acre. So it's a lot less than even is allowed by the 5.7. And in multifamily, as it is zoned now, you're allowed 9 units per acre. And since you could have 3 stories with 30 and 40% impervious, you could probably meet that. So you're probably talking 75 units max in single family as proposed versus 300 if it was multifamily. So it's a lot of difference in traffic and things that would be generated there. We will have to meet stormwater management for this site to get it permitted. This is in the area of critical concern. The stormwater management is quality and treatment is much higher in the critical concern area than it is normally. And so it will be, the subdivision across the street is newer and it has stormwater management. I'm sure met that criteria. The other subdivisions in the area don't meet that because they were before the stormwater management criteria was into effect. Water and sewer is available to the site. We've had an environmentalist to look at the site, and the only endangered species is gopher tortoise. And so they'll have to be mitigated for if we remove them and, you know, if we're impacting those, and we understand that. Part of the larger site, if you'll look on your map, you can probably see a couple of OR zones, and there are some wetlands. It is not planned at all to impact wetlands in those OR zones on this site. And so with that, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions.
This was the same development years ago that Walmart wanted to develop, right?
I think Walmart, and then also the last development was Falcon Ridge or something.
Then
Falcon
it came
Woods.
in and was developed into, well, rezoned into this, is what we
Yes.
have now.
Yes.
And at the time, I just remember the residents in that area definitely didn't want Walmart to come in.
Right. Walmart generates a lot more traffic than even the residential.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I just was wanting to bring up some of that history. I don't know if some of you were on the board back then when that came about, to give you some of the history, because it was a very contentious time over the Walmart. And then it got rejected. And Walmart said that they didn't want to be anywhere that they didn't want, or we didn't want them. Anyway, the overall, you're only looking at building on the R2 that you're rezoning currently, or are you going to, what are you going to do with the second portion of that, the larger property?
I'm sure eventually the entire site
that
would
is separate
be looked at
phase?
as a single-family subdivision, yes.
Okay. Because, yeah, that was, yeah, I guess that is R1B, isn't it? And then you're just matching it. Okay. That's all the questions I had. Anybody else have any other questions of Mr. Honeycutt? Okay. Vice Chairman?
Yeah, I'm looking here. I'm just curious, what's that area that you want to develop? And I'm not familiar, what exactly happens there? What exactly happens there when you have that situation?
If you're in the flood zone and you want to impact it, then you have to compensate for the area that you're impacting. You have to store the water, any water that you displace. And if you're familiar with that site, it's actually pretty high and sandy, but there's probably more topography on that site in that area of the city than most others. So there are some low areas, and that would be where maybe there's some flood zone areas.
So do you fill that in? I'm asking this because I'm not familiar with what goes on when you start developing.
You can fill it in or you can leave it. If you fill it in and you displace the water that could be stored there in a flood, then you have to compensate and store it somewhere else on site.
Okay, and then when you do your site development, I guess you go through that process.
Right. And so typically if it's in the middle of this, you could move it to the side or something like that, but you still have to provide that compensation for that flood.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have one more question. Are you aware of any water issues on the, I can't remember that, is it Tanglewood? I don't know, it's not Tanglewood, but the...
Tanglewood is to the north.
Okay, are there any flooding issues currently in that sub
I
area?
don't know.
I'm asking this because if occasionally what happens is by development you're able to eliminate some of those issues. And
I would be surprised. This is like the Sand Ridge and it's high.
okay.
I would be surprised if they have on the west side of their property.
I know it's high on the garden
There's
side.
a very low area that's probably their
They're not-
stormwater.
Not garden, I'm sorry.
Carpenter is on the
Carpenter's.
west.
It's high on the Carpenter side, so. Okay, any other questions of Mr. Honeycutt? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next card.
Chris Gardner.
Mr. Gardner.
Good evening. Chris Gardner with Condev. We are part of the applicant. We are the applicant, even though it's a different name. 1482 Granville Drive, Winter Park, Florida. Happy to answer any questions. Our company has been in Titusville a long time. My father and uncle came here in 1962. We developed Meadow Ridge down off State Road 405, which was at one time going to be a thriving industrial park that was converted to residential. So we have history here. We like Titusville. I'm excited about the opportunity to bring new development to the north side of the town. We've seen this property for some time. I'm familiar with the history, Commissioner. I've certainly watched Walmart wander through and watched Falcon Ridge wander through, so hopefully a third time's a charm. As Rodney discussed, I mean, we're hoping to match and mirror what we have, at least to the west of us, which is residential. And I'd be shocked if we can achieve much more than 2.2 units to the acre on the entire site, which is kind of where it looks like right now. So we do think it's in keeping with the surrounding and would very much look forward to having this project advance and move forward. So happy to answer any questions from certainly not only Commission here, but also the public. So.
Question from the Vice Chair.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
What is your time frame on this?
Well, we've got some time. I mean, I wouldn't call us in the first inning, but we're pretty close. I mean, so based on the city's entitlement schedule and state and other local agencies, I would think we're every bit of another 7-8 months worth of permitting and engineering time frame.
So within the year?
I hope we're inside of a year, sir, but I think that's probably likely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
On the 2.2, did you have another question?
No.
On the 2.2 acres or units per acre, is that because of your between the streets, the stormwater?
It's really because of the 10,000 square foot lot minimum. I mean, I think that typically in that R2 zoning category, we'd be able to achieve something of greater density. I mean, I think there was a project on Sisson Road that had
You're
R2 that's
4,
something more. So really, because we have to achieve the 10,000 square foot lot minimum. Yeah. Once you back out retention and rights of ways and open spaces, we're not going to achieve much more than that.
So on this particular item, when you have 10,000 square feet for a lot, they're still having to meet open space requirement?
In this case, there aren't any minimum required open spaces for like the R1C zoning district, for instance. A lot of the other subdivisions that come through recently went through the planned unit development process, and that does have a minimum open space requirement. And typically, and that open space requirement was included because a lot of times the lots are much smaller, so it was kind of a trade-off as to they're smaller lots, but in the end, they're still required dedicated open space. And so because this is just one of our standard typical single-family zoning districts, the R1C district, there is no minimum open space required. There is a maximum building coverage on each lot, but there is no actual required open space to be dedicated.
I can't remember, is it 25% pervious or is it 40?
Well, the area critical concern allows a maximum of 40%
40,
impervious, yeah.
Impervious, yeah. Now, do you guys have any plans for any type of to put pervious concrete in and get credits, or?
So we're familiar with some of the point system, if you the way I describe the point system. We haven't gotten that far, and I don't suspect that we'll need. I mean, we have a big enough site here. I think that we can work within. I mean, it's an 80-acre overall site, even though we're only seeking a rezoning on 32 acres tonight. Okay. The site is good size, and I think, given some of those open space requirements, we're not the builder. I would expect our builders are going to require that we provide park space and some of these other things that residents come to expect and enjoy in the community. So, as we get into the site planning process, those things would become more readily available.
All right. Are there any other questions of Mr. Gardner?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
How many homes do you specifically think you're going to put on each acre?
Yeah, so Commissioner, it looks, even though it's a cartoon at best today, that this 80-acre site would accommodate between 160 and 170 home sites. So a little over 2 units an acre, 2 to 2.3 units per acre. Could be phased. I mean, it could likely be phased. I mean, that, I could easily see this project be phased, although we've not seen, from an engineer's perspective, a grading plan and things of that nature, which might drive a phasing of a development.
And that takes in some of the open space that you start.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next card, please.
Lisa Smith.
Mrs. Smith? You got some books with you.
I'm against this being rezoned. My name is Lisa Smith. I live on 828 Parkwood Avenue. I was one of the leading members for 3 years to keep this property from being developed by Walmart. And in October 10th of 2006, after Walmart pulled out, we went ahead and with the city council, it was rezoned from this proposed commercial high density to the medium density residential at that time. And a lot of it had to do with the water. It is a recharge area for a well field. There was gopher tortoises at that time, 118 gopher tortoises. This really is a area that's actually very beautiful, and really quickly I will just go through this. I got back from a vacation. I've been gone 3 weeks, and I found out about this, so I kind of just had to grab what I had. As president of the Homeowners Association for Tanglewood, back in August of 24th of 2004, we actually vacated or requested that the stub out be vacated so that any development would not come through our subdivision. We already have one ingress egress at the top of our hill, and we have one to the north that we share with Hunter's Ridge. And so we petitioned that we close out that stub out so that no development to the south of us would ever come through our subdivision. So that was done, and very important for this rezoning at the time. With the city's, with the city in Falcon Woods, we went ahead and we submitted a Florida Forever request for this piece of property for full acquisition. And back in February of 14th, 2008, we went to the Department of Environmental Protection in Tallahassee, and every department that had a vote voted yes to protect this land. Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Community Affairs, Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, the Historical Resources Department of State, the governor's appointees who sat on the board, and Florida Natural Areas Inventory. At this point, we then were put on the list of the Brevard Coastal Scrub Ecosystem. It's managed through Brevard County. We're on the list, top 25 projects. The main feature of this property, it is on the Atlantic Coastal Ridge. Real quick, I want to just go over that some of the things that they did talk about on this land were the indigo snakes, the gopher tortoises, the scrub jays, bald eagles. We have cinnamon ferns, royal ferns, and these are all threatened species. So they were very important. Then with the city council, and at the time Mark Ryan was the city manager, we moved forward at that time with the Florida Communities Trust application, and that was sent forward to protect the land. The people who supported all of this was Tom Feeney, he's a United States Congressman, Bill Posey, State Senator, Representative Tony Sasso, Truman Scarborough, he was the chairman of Brevard County, and Bob Allen, who was the Florida House Representative, and then Laura Lee Thompson, owner of Dixie Crossroads for Business. Okay. I also have, pulled out of my stack real quickly, was a letter under the United States Department of the Interior Fish and Wildlife Service, and that they talked about this land has designated as a potential containing suitable habitat for the federally threatened Florida scrub jay, endangered species. There are wetlands at the front of that property, and they're right there. I hope that if they move forward, and it is not that I'm anti-development. I understand that Florida Forever has not been able to obtain the funding to go ahead and purchase this land. I think that the individual who has bought this land, yes, it should be developed, but I think it should be developed appropriately. And the word high bothers me a great deal. I think that if it's going to be rezoned to anything, it should be low density. And to protect our water, we're buying water already from outside of the city because we can't meet the demands. And I think that we are supposed to be diligent and good and have good, be good stewards of our water and our environment. And that's why I'm opposed to the word high. So I just wanted to come here today to share that.
Okay, well, hold on. Are there any questions of Mrs. Smith? Okay. So here's some things that I wanted to go through. So I was actually on this commission back then when it first came up. I'm very familiar with the land. And I remember the gopher tortoises. I thought it had scrub jay at the time.
Yes.
Wasn't familiar with the bald eagles. Don't recall that.
I think it's because of South Lake that they use that as a feeding area, that they'll come. They were not able to find nests. We did find owls that come back every year and utilize a tree for their home, and osprey, of course.
So what was the status on Florida Forever on what was the final decision? Did they put it in some type of plan for procurement? I mean, these are...
It's on the list to purchase.
But they haven't dedicated any funds.
Unfortunately, no. With Florida Forever and everything that's going on within the state, they have not been able to get the money together. But it is under the Brevard Coastal Scrub Ecosystem, and it specifically says in here, it talks about Falcon Woods, because actually the developer became, he assisted us and with looking at this property, potentially backing out and letting the city buy it with Florida Forever. And so we did call it Falcon Woods after them.
Okay. So part of the problem is when you're dealing with state funds like that, they put it on the books and then they earmark it, and it takes forever. At this point in time, it doesn't look like there's anything that's remotely going to happen anytime soon. So let me defer. Am I correct in what I'm saying? Is that it takes, first they have to earmark it, and then it can go years and years and years out. Okay? So that's my first concern, is that the state hasn't truly made that commitment. Not that I'm not trying to defend the developer on this, by no means, but I'm just saying that it is private property. Now, originally, I recall we had the full, when this was turned down from Walmart, we had a packed room.
525 people.
Everybody was excited that this was not going to be a Walmart. Everybody was happy. Okay? At that time, when it converted to apartments, everybody was happy. And that's a high density. That is 9 units per acre. He's right in his assessment that they could probably max that out at 9 units an acre, which it's considered medium density. But because of where it's at, I mean, they could probably top it out at, I mean, given the nature of going up, they could definitely go higher than what they're going now. With the 10,000 square foot lots, that is about as low as you really get. It really gets into, with the 2.2, that almost becomes, it's not a state. A state is 2 acre minimum. Is it 1 acre? But roughly almost with 2.2, it's pretty big. You're looking at almost a half an acre per home on the density units. I'm just putting that out there. That is very low. The next lowest is basically a state, and I think there's a 5 acre. There's a 5 acre one too. And the problem with the 5 acres is that they don't sell. You don't find markets for them because nobody wants to buy them, because you have to have very high-end homes to accommodate. I mean, that's been my experience. So your concern with it being low density, it is, and it may be something that we could look at. I understand that the residents here would definitely like to see this developed into some type of preserve, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. To help mediate some of those concerns, low density is about the best that you could probably do, because right now they wouldn't even have to come to us, and they could put apartments like crazy there on the front end and houses in the back, and they don't have to even ask. So they're bringing it in even lower than what it is there. So I'm just trying to, when I first read this, I thought, this is great. This is even lower because the neighborhood, you definitely didn't want high. I think the concerns I recall were traffic. This is not really what you signed up for. You thought that this was not the neighborhood that you wanted for yourself. The school was there. I think the school is an issue, which is going to become a school again. Am I correct? So that's going to be an issue again. Overall, I mean, I really look at this as a win for the neighborhood, as well as with the stub out, because I know you didn't want but you got that. So to wrap this all up, if we were to maybe put a condition on a density cap of maybe 2.5 acres, I'm saying that because it's a suggestion. What were you saying?
This is just a regular rezoning. We can't put any conditions.
Okay,
with
you're right.
Yeah.
It's just a zoning. My apologies. Like overstepping here, but I do believe that this is something better for the neighborhood than what could happen, and it is a low density, very low density in comparison.
And I think that's our objective, is to make sure that whatever can be protected is protected. And the fact about, they haven't moved forward with Florida Forever, they prioritize, remember, within the top 20 projects, Brevard County, which is not just this Falcon Woods. Mm-hmm. There are other pieces of property. But when you have things like down in Miami where you're looking at the Everglades and it takes $5.6 million. Of course, they're going to move forward with that money as they can to save those larger portions before they start looking at this. So next week if there was a windfall and the state said, oh, here's $3 million, we can come forward and purchase, well, then they would be going to the current owner to see about doing that.
And that is an option still.
Correct.
Because this is a rezoning to bring it down to a lower zoning. I'm sure that, if there's any way you could get them to prioritize this, and I'm sure that it's a lot easier.
I've spent many years living there, and I can tell you where they have left open areas, larger lots. All you do is drive down Carpenter Road. If you look on the county side of that land, where they have larger homes on larger lots, there is actually very little flooding. Then you go between Garden and start heading north towards 46, and you look into Southern Comfort Estates, and you look on those top pieces of property up there that have more homes clustered together. They've got major flooding on Carpenter Road, and they have gone back and really tried to fix that. But when there's a storm, we're constantly flooded on Carpenter in those areas. And I know they were built before they had any kind of stormwater. I know Tanglewood, we have 3 stormwater areas, but up there it's a major flooding problem. And on the front of this property, there is flooding. When you come off of I-95 and you're heading south and you go to make a right on there, right on Garden, it floods in that region. There's a dry lake bed in the front of that property. And in the back, we've even had flooding up on where the stub out is at. They have had flooding there.
Now, how is the water off in Tanglewood area, in Parkwood specifically?
We actually, when FDOT wanted to come through, they looked at doing a share of our retention pond that is on I-95, and then they realized that they could utilize the sand now that property there, it's 50 feet, up to 70 feet of sand. It's like a mountain. If you stand, it's the only part when you're on I-95, if you stand on top of this property, you're looking down at I-95, which is very unusual. But they came in and they put that huge retention pond in there so that they could acquire the sand to widen I-95. So those retention ponds, because we're on a hill, our top one goes to our middle one goes to the bottom. And when they contacted me and our state representative and we went and looked at their planning for FDOT, then we did discuss the pond share, and it was not possible because there would just be too much water and we could potentially flood the people in Tanglewood. So that's why they went to the south of us and put the 12-acre retention pond there on that property.
Is that the property that says PSP on it, public, is that it's next to 95?
It's
It's
very oddly shaped piece.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
It's actually in a low density residential land use.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, essentially, I understand where you guys are coming from. I know it's probably been this way forever, obviously.
Seems like that.
But I do feel that this is a win for your area, that they are bringing it down even more. It would be very difficult, in my opinion, but then I'm only one vote on this. But it would be, in my opinion, it would be difficult to say no to even a lower density, because if we deny it, then the alternate is apartments. Right now, apartments are building, We have, I don't know if this is a little bit farther north than...
When they talked about the apartments, I know they talked about high, low footprint. Also, you would have more common areas. Parks, usually with apartments you do. More recreation. You could use impervious concrete for the parking lot so that the water would be getting back into our well field. So there were some issues talked about at that time about that. And that's why when they looked at going from the high density commercial, which it should never have been zoned that, and then they, according to Lisa Smith, and then they went ahead and moved forward and did the multifamily. That's what they were looking at was, okay, right. It would have less impact on that land.
I've been watching it go from lower and lower and lower, and in my opinion, and I've been doing this for a while. Even, I mean, I'm a homeowner, I own property. If I was in your shoes, and not that I can speak for you on this, but this is something that does work better in your favor. But so I guess I'm just trying to understand why you're against not moving this to.
Only because, like I said, when this was first presented to us as multifamily, medium, not high, then there would be recreation areas. The impervious concrete could be used for parking lots. And that's how it was set up at that time and addressed to us. So I guess, Mike, if it was more like a Hunter's Ridge, where there's more land and homes, that to me, because of the water situation, would be much better for our community than trying to put 165 homes in somewhere, when at the medium density, when they originally talked about this at that meeting on October 10th for City Council, they were talking about 138 homes. So that's a big jump.
138 homes, but what was the density?
Just to clarify on that, the original proposal was for 138 single-family homes plus
I thought
288 multifamily units.
Right.
So overall, there was a significantly more than that.
And that was the 288 on the portion that we're looking at now.
Right.
So you're looking at the difference just on the portion that we're looking now is 2.2 times 38 is what you're going to get, and then that's the reduction. So.
And I think it's just important that everybody realize how important this piece of land is. You're not going to find, it's 94 acres in total, and it's been kind of cutting down smaller, but it's a large piece of land within the city limits, and you don't see that a lot. And I could understand why you would want to develop it. It is across from the school. There's going to be traffic coming in and out of that. As long as they meet the criteria to have their own two or one ingress, egress, then that would be wonderful, because I can tell you, I'll be fighting to keep that stub out closed. We have a problem now with people coming through our subdivision, flying down Ridgewood to get to the neighboring Hunter's Ridge.
Didn't that get replatted though? Didn't they get?
The right of way was vacated, so that's not even an option to use that stuff out.
So,
and that's what we're saying.
When I say replatted, I'm saying vacated. So
yeah, right. So,
okay.
I do appreciate your time.
Are there any questions? Yes.
I just want you to clarify. You're saying that you prefer the R2 zoning as opposed to the R1C?
I'm just saying that I don't want high density. I just am concerned about that. And that's what people have addressed to me, and that's why I'm here. It's not just me. I have a lot of people who call Lisa, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, because I'm trying to see your rationale, because it just seems like what they're proposing, 2.2 per acre, would be a lot less impact than what the apartments, to me.
And like I said, the only reason that we had it at the time, this is a lot of history. These three books are nothing out of a bookcase. I have massive amounts of paper from everybody, and they did do a wildlife. They came in and actually did an actual survey of the property, as far as wildlife, the type of plant life, everything, and why it was so important to save. So I guess that's my motivation here tonight, is just to make sure that people understand. It's been a long time. People forget. We have new members on boards. Not all the same people are in city council. So I think that's our motivation, is to make sure people haven't forgotten how important this piece of land is. So anything that's done to it, really, you need to protect it.
Something I wanted to point out to you. By them making this change, they've literally reduced this down 200, it's rough estimates, but 204 units. That is the reduction that this will be by making this change on that front piece of property. According to what they're saying, if it's 2.2 units per acre.
And if they do that, then right.
Now keep in mind,
if that's done that way,
the most that they could possibly do is 4 units an acre, and they're not going to be able to do that. I would think that they might be able to hit 3, but that would be. But you got to remember that they have to have stormwater, the roads, all of that. that you're including in there. So they're not going to get 4, but because not everything's square. It's not a square acre, you know?
No, it's not.
So I'm just trying to let you know that this is a huge reduction on that front piece of property. And should be a win for you guys. Now, the only drawback is that you have somebody that's closer to development. But, you know, and I understand that, and maybe that's something that's coming up. But
I think that's not even I mean, we all are in a subdivision, so you understand that the possibility of that. I know that with the retention areas, because we're responsible for it, there has to be an easement. You can't build up to it and start dumping your water into something someone else is responsible for unless they come up with some other plan. So, you know, I think it's just wise development. I think that's what we're all concerned about is, you know, protect what we have because you don't get a second chance.
I agree.
And as long as it stayed to that kind of development, you know, less is always best, especially there.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, do we have any other cards on this?
Marilyn Jennings.
Okay. Real quick, Member Ritchie has a question for staff.
Can you clarify, you've got this R1C high density, and they're only doing 2.2 per acre. Can you?
That's basically just a title. I mean, the various single-family zoning districts throughout the city, you have R1A, which is low-density single-family residential, R1B, which is medium, and R1C, which is high. However, those titles are somewhat misleading because single-family high-density R1C only allows about 6 units an acre typically. However, multifamily medium densities allows up to 9 units an acre. So it's how the zoning districts were titled throughout time and the policy decisions that were made. But in reality, even at the full allowable density in R1C, you're still actually at a lower allowable density than what is actually allowed in R2.
Is it possible for them to go more than the 2.2 at all?
Based on the regulations that are written in the code, yes, they could go more than 2.2, but because of the area of critical concern standards, going back to what the chairman said, they really wouldn't be able to get any more than 4 because they're required to have 10,000 square foot lots, which is about 4 units per acre. So that even if you took out all roads, all stormwater, they wouldn't be able to get over 4 units an acre because of the 10,000 square foot minimum lot size requirement.
For Mr. Honeycutt, is this 2.2 per acre, are you sticking with that? Is that something you're wanting to solidify?
Will that
for
change?
the entire site, yeah, we're getting about 2.2 per acre.
So you're not going to pursue anything higher?
Well, when you say we're not pursuing a density per acre, but that's about what we'll get, and we can't get any more.
Okay.
As staff stated, there's a code that covers the area of critical concern. And so therefore that overcomes the zoning, and that's 10,000 square feet. So as they just said, if you had no roads and no stormwater, then you could get maybe 4 units per acre. 10,000 into 43,560 will go 4 times and a little left over. And so, but you have to have roads and you have to have stormwater. And so I can tell you from the layout, all we're going to get, and you also have to have buffers around the site too. And so it's just coming out to about 2.2 units per acre.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Okay. I'm sorry, Lori, what did you say did we have any more cards?
Yes, Marilyn Jennings.
Okay, Marilyn.
Good evening. I'm Marilyn Jennings. I live at 455 Lakeview Avenue. My property abuts the woods. I'm sorry, I only have one vocal cord, so it's a little difficult for me to speak. I was here to fight against Walmart. I was here to fight against Falcon Woods. And I'm so glad you were here today with your data, because I couldn't remember all of that. Since the bushwhacker came into the woods these past couple of months, I have had 3 baby gopher tortoises come to my yard, which means that their nests were disturbed. They guaranteed me that they weren't disturbing nests, but they were. They guaranteed me that the project was going through no matter what I said or did. They told me that the LLC that was formed by they, I mean the guy that was running the surveying equipment that had the bushwhacker guy out there who didn't speak English, and my Spanish is not that great anymore. I'm Native American, Shawnee, and I understand that what we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. This piece of land is virgin woods. I don't know if you can completely understand how unique and beautiful that is. Nothing has been built here. This land is as it was when God created it. The animals that are there, I actually have pictures of American bald eagle sitting in a tree next to my yard eating. He caught his fish in South Lake, I'm pretty sure. And they're not nesting on the property, but they are coming there to find comfort and to eat in peace. I have pictures of Florida gray wolves that live in those woods who bring their kits to my yard to feed from the light in my yard that brings bugs. I have photographs of great horned owls that also bring their babies to my yard to feed from the same light. I have black-bellied whistling ducks that come to my yard. They're all drawn because of these woods. In these woods is a watershed that feeds the St. Johns River. They've been referred to as wetlands. When Walmart and Falcon Woods came, they put their markers around the wetlands, and they did it during the driest part of the year and made it look very small. It's not a small wetland area. It's actually quite large. And it's a beautiful place. If you ever get a chance to go out there and walk through this area, it's absolutely gorgeous. The trees alone are doing so much for Titusville by releasing oxygen into the air and helping keeping our air clean. We want to be known as a nature center in Titusville. We want bicyclists to come here. We want bird watchers to come here. We're not going to draw these people if all we're doing is turning our town into concrete and houses. I know that this is being done, no offense to you, I know this is being done through greed. People want money. It's an old Native American saying from way back in the 1800s that one day the white man will understand that you can't eat money. These woods are precious. They're very difficult to find these days. If there's nothing we can do about this development that's coming in, I know that Mr. Honeycutt said 2.2 for the entire project. I don't know if he's talking about the whole 80-plus acres or just this in the front that we're seeing hashtagged here, in which case this front part may be more than 2.2 per acre. And then the ones in the back are going to be less per acre, and it averages out to 2.2. I know there's a lot of fast talking that can go on in this business. I've been around for several years. And I know that it all boils down to money. It's more money for Titusville. I understand that as well. But this watershed is amazingly important. The St. Johns River is already in trouble, and this feeds it. So I would like for you all to take that into account when you make your decision. And remember that you truly, truly cannot eat money and survive. Thank you.
Okay, well, hold on. Are there any questions for Marilyn?
Sure.
I have nothing. Okay. I wanted to mention something to you real quick. On the wetlands, you were saying that they measured those out during the dry season and they've marked them out. I believe, and so you can correct me if I'm wrong, they call them truthing. Is it called truthing?
Ground truthing, yes.
Okay, so those are only good for like 5 years, right?
I don't think our code establishes a maximum time frame for a wetlands delineation.
Used to. Or I thought it's not the code that does it. I thought it was whatever the regulation is on that says the certification on those were only good for 5 years. So
there could be a statute that requires that, but I'm not aware of anything in our regulations that does.
In the past, I'll just mention this real quick. In the early 2000s, wetlands were a huge issue in Titusville. And we went through it over and over again. There was a lot of protections. We've changed our code. Well, it's not code. We've changed our procedures to, like in these particular items that you saw on the maps, you have where it says conservation on it. It used to be that these said OR, okay, open space and recreation. And basically that means, in the past, that meant, hey, we can develop on this, okay? So then they came back through and they said, look, we need to get a better understanding. And then they changed it to conservation to give it a harder kick so everybody understands in the future that these were determined for conservation, no development. And a lot of times they are for wetlands. But my understanding of what you're telling me, if that is the case, I thought that they would still need to go through, redo it, because this has been over 10 years at least.
Right.
And they're going to have to go
We
through.
thought we were safe.
And at this point, it would be bigger. The wetlands will be bigger.
Right.
It will probably factor into the density at a lower density.
And another thing about this, if I may say, is that, water seeks its own level. And this watershed, you'd have to ask the surveyor, of course, but I think it's probably one of the lowest levels of this whole. It used to be 96 acres before DOT came and took their thing. So any of these people that fertilize their lawns and it rains, that water is eventually going to make its way to the watershed. I don't know how you can avoid that. And unless you tell everybody don't fertilize your lawn, they're going to pollute the watershed, which is going to go into St. John's and make the St. John's even worse. I know we have a problem with our lagoon already because of people fertilizing their lawns. So to me, building here is not going to take down the trees that are helping keep our air clean. It's also going to poison the watershed. And it's a no-win situation as far as I see it.
What I want to get across, and here's Vice Chairman Shavir, he sits on the Environmental Commission. I've sat on the Environmental Commission as well as liaison as well. So it's not like we don't have an understanding. We do. The issue before us is not to develop. It's more of, are we going to let them develop less? That's pretty much what is being asked tonight.
Could we tear down buildings and the empty hotels and build there where there's already no trees?
I'm trying to phrase what we're really talking about. If it's not about, we can't stop them from developing. That's not in our purview on what we're hearing tonight. It's not in councils. It's saying, look, we want to make it more agreeable to what they want. Well, let me rephrase that. They're coming before us to say, look, we want to reduce our acreage and make it more uniform, and we're going to develop less. So it's not that it's not about us stopping development. We can't. If they want to develop, they could do it tomorrow. They start submitting the permits. It'd be just a more density. It'd be a higher density plan.
So it's basically a done deal.
I'm just saying, well, yeah. I mean, it's. I don't know. If we vote no, then it stays at a higher density. If we vote yes, it's a lower density. But it's not about stopping development, and that's all I'm trying to get across. Is that's not what's before us. It's only the zoning.
Well, I'm with the low density then. If it's got to be, then let it be low density.
Right. So
One house per acre.
I'm
Sounds
not.
good.
Here's the.
I have 2 acres around me, and I'm loving it.
Please
so.
understand, and so I want to get this across to everybody in the audience. It's not like we're taking sides, and it's not about that.
I understand.
I'm saying what
I do
is
understand.
Better is to bring in. I always like lower density. I too. I like the trees. I don't like a lot of development. I don't want to see high rises covering the river. You know, we went through and had studies on that to say the residents said, yeah, we don't either.
Yeah.
You know, and so I understand, but at the same time, it would be if you had a piece of property that you want to build a house on, and the person with the house already there says, I like the trees there. It's been like this for 20 years. I don't want you developing. It's the same argument.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions of Mrs. Jennings?
You made the statement that the way it's zoned now, they could actually just move forward. There's no stopping them with the zoning that it's at right now.
They could put houses on the north side and apartments on the south side.
So what, by rezoning it to the lower density, you're getting better and not worse, because right now they can move forward on a higher density.
And that's why I was saying, I didn't mean to interrupt, they're reducing this by 204 units an acre by this change. That is...
Can we write in there, leave as many trees as possible?
If you were to really look at this when they do the traffic studies on this, let's just say you take 2 trips a day. That's literally 400-something trips a day that is being reduced just because of this reduction. And so I'm just wanting to make you guys understand, it's when I vote, it's not like, hey, I'm yes, it's because it is better on this particular property to reduce the density.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman?
Yeah, I want to add my voice to what the chairman said. I am concerned not only about this property, but properties around the city. And as you well know, there are big plans for this city. We've been a small town for many, many, many years, and we lost a great deal when the Cape went downhill 10, 15 years ago, when they laid off everybody, and everything came to a screeching halt. Well, that's changed. The tide is reversed, and we're now in a flood tide with developments being planned all over the city. And I sympathize with you folks because, quite frankly, if it was up to me, we wouldn't do anything like this. But that's not what we're here for. So I agree with the chairman that this is a lower density, and I hope that with all due respect to the developer, you guys got a job to do, but these folks, we're all concerned about the environment and future generations. It's not just for today. It's for tomorrow and 50 years from now. And if we stay on this track that we're doing right now, you think we have climate problems now? Wait another 3 or 4 generations, and when we can't change things, when we can't reverse the process. And that's my concern about what we're doing today. So I really feel like we should go ahead, because this is what we have to do, and accept this lower density. And then maybe you folks can continue your fight. And I think you should. And I say fight because I am concerned. This is okay for today. For today, this is fine. But it's not going to be fine in 2 or 3 generations because of what's going on everywhere. And sooner or later, we're going to have to come to a point where we say, no, Bert Harris rules, we have to change that. It's not, you can't make the supply anymore. But right now, we have to live with this. So I say, let us do this now, because we're kind of forced to do this, not because we want to, because that's the way the law is structured. But I hope in years to come that you folks continue this argument, this fight for better use of our land and not have to go down this road. And I would like to see that maybe there's some hope left. If we reduce this, and maybe you folks can get together with the developer and continue this process of reducing this damage to this land. So anyway, I hope that you work for it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other cards?
Tom Needlinger.
Hi, I'm Tom Neidlinger. I'm at 520 North Carpenter Road. I had a question, but he answered it. I want to know the size of the housing was proposed, 1,000 square foot, 1,500, 2,000 square foot. It's a different parcel of land it's like an L-shaped piece of land for sale. Mm-hmm. It's only the piece across from South Lake that they're dealing with right now. And I'm in favor of the lower density single family over the other. But being that I'm here, I have another question, 2 concerns. Across the street from my house, I'm on North Carpenter Road. I'm between Garden and Dairy. They used to cut 15 foot of grass from the road back all the way down. They haven't cut it in months. It's 3 feet tall. North Carpenter has no fire hydrants all the way down that street. They added them on South Carpenter, They never added them on North Carpenter. So if somebody pulls off the road and the catalytic converter lights that on fire, we're going to have a big fire. The whole area you're talking about is going to be burnt. So I think somebody needs to come out. I don't know if the city or the county, they need to cut this grass. It's that tall. And it's right off the road. You can't pull off the road. And people, have lawn service, so they pull up there all the time. One catalytic converter is 1,700 degrees. It light that thing right up on a hot day. So I'm concerned. My house is vinyl siding. It would melt. But we had a fire years back across in that lot, and they come out with bulldozers to put it out. This is right at the road. It's all dead trees through there. South Carpenter had fire hydrants installed, and I thought North Carpenter would get them eventually. We never got them. So on my side of the road, there's houses. Across the street is a big empty lot. It's part of the parcel, that L-shaped piece of land that's up for discussion right now. So that's my concern. Is who's supposed to cut that grass? I'm in the city limits. Is that Titusville or is that the county? Who cuts that grass? They used to cut it all the time. Big tractor with a bush hog, cut it down 15 feet from the road. Now the grass is that tall right up to the road. It's ridiculous. We're talking about maybe 6 city blocks of just tall grass, high temperature. Somebody's going to pull off there and put the whole thing on fire.
Sir, I'll have the Code Enforcement Department look into that for you.
What?
I'll have the Code Enforcement Department look into that for you.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I got a question for the city. I can't remember, how long ago was this annexed in the city?
I really don't know, to be honest.
Because I know that parts of this area, I don't know if it goes up to Heller, or, I know that there's county in there, and then I could have swore that we annexed this.
All along Carpenter, yeah, the city limits goes back and forth. You're in the city, then you're in the county. So I'm not sure as far as Carpenter Road, if that's a city maintained right of way or a county maintained right of way. So
I thought we annexed a portion of this, a large portion. Well, it's been years, but I know that I thought the county was maintaining a lot of that on Carpenter from, is it Dairy on, which is north, but it's really, I thought around Heller. Gosh, I really wish Member Baker was here because she lives right there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Heller or maybe it's farther up, but I believe I've seen exactly what you're talking about. So, but Chelsea said she'll look into it and hopefully you'll get a solution. Okay, are there any other cards?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll close this meeting. Something that I wanted to let you know is that, so we didn't put time limits on normally, well, it's not all the time. I try to let everybody speak as long as they want. But I wanted you guys in the audience to be able to speak your mind, and be able to have a say in this. But like I said, at the end of the day, this is moving towards lower density. So we will bring this back before the board.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, if you come up to the microphone.
On this application, it says proposed maximum. No. It says proposed maximum density of applicable 5.69 units per acre maximum. Is that going to be revised?
It is. It doesn't need to be because it's in the area of critical concern. And as we've talked about, the true maximum is 4 densities if we had only houses only.
Okay.
And so in reality, the maximum is 4, and then you add the roads, and then they should come up at 2.2.
Okay.
Roads and stormwater, and then you got to look at, potential bigger wetlands.
And that's 2.2 for just that 32 acres?
I thought it was 2.2 for overall. Was that correct?
Overall.
So we're not to the site planning stage yet, but just at the risk of sounding like a really greedy developer, We have tried to find more density on this site. The best we can do at this time is around 170 units on the entire site. So that's where we're going. Would say that a 10,000 square foot lot's actually almost a quarter acre.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by lots that are anywhere from 0.16 acres to 0.2 acres. If anything, actually, we've increased the density, if you will. We've increased lot sizes in this part of the world. So we're trying to marry to the market. I mean, there is absolutely a capitalist part of this business. I don't disagree. But I would say that our proposal, once we get here with a site plan, will mirror that of the density of our surrounding communities. So.
Okay. So let me reopen this meeting because I do have it's mandatory for me to let you guys come back up and speak. Rodney, did you want to come back up and speak on this?
I could just respond to a couple of questions if it makes anybody feel better. We did recently hire firm Andy Conklin, environmentalist, and he reviewed the site, and there are no scrub jays, there are no eagles on the site. As Mr. Gardner said, this will be the largest lots there are in the surrounding community. Even Tanglewood has smaller lots than this, and they're large lots, but they weren't developed under this ordinance, so they're also smaller than this. They do have stormwater there too, but it's not under the area critical concern stormwater, which is much stricter. Also, other things in area critical concern, you can't remove any soil from the site. And the purpose of that is that soil is what stores the water in the aquifer, so you can't reduce that amount of soil that's available there to store that. And the other adjacent subdivisions didn't have that. As far as the wetland boundaries, when this development comes in, they'll be reviewed by the St. Johns Water Management District, and they'll look at those wetlands. And they don't look at just where the water table is or where the water level is. They have to review three criteria: the soils, and the soils tells you if it's been a wetland for a long time, because there'll be soils like muck and brown stains from years ago. If it was formerly a wetland, it's not now, and so they have to consider that now. And there's also vegetation. If the water was higher in previous years than it is now, that vegetation will still be there. So they have to look at that. And what you're thinking about the 5 years is when you get a permit, it's valid for 5 years. And so the old permits, if there were any, are not valid anymore. And if there were, with a new development proposal, they'll have to review it again. And one advantage that I thought of while they were talking about it, I mean, this is a wooded area, and I know everybody likes to keep woods, me too. But once you develop it, you do have fire protection that you don't have before instead of a potential fire hazard, which woods can be, as we all know, if you remember what happened in 1998, and burned homes, this 46 area and things like that. I don't think this site would ever be part of a big fire that came down, but people riding down 95 could throw something out of their car that could cause these woods to burn, and it is 80 acres. It'd take a while to get out and control it. So anyway, that were just things I thought about while people were talking. I understand their concerns, though.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we will close this meeting, bring it back for the board. Are there any other discussions or questions? Are there any questions for staff? Or is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion on this item. Vice Chairman Shavir.
You know how I feel about it, and the chairman, but we do have to do our duty. And so, sorry about that. So with that, I will make a motion to approve the rezoning 1-2017.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we take a vote on this?
Vice Chairman Shavir?
Yes.
Member Ritchie?
Yes.
Secretary Chambers?
Yes.
Chairman Williams?
Yes. Okay. Motion passes. When does this go before City Council?
This will be before City Council. The first reading of the ordinance will be August 22nd. The public hearing will be on September 12th.
Okay, so September 12th is the important meeting. Obviously, at the first reading, I think they just read it out. And so the 12th is an important meeting for you to attend if you'd like to have further discussion on this. All right, so let's move on. And I appreciate you guys coming out and speaking on this. I truly do. Thank you. So we will go to reports. Anything you'd like to report?
I don't have anything. I think Lori, before the meeting, handed out the summary of action from the last council meeting. It wasn't ready when we mailed your agenda packets out, but I wanted to pass that along to you so you could review it.
Thank you. Yeah, I read it. Thank you very much. It
Absolutely.
makes it much easier to keep up to date what happens.
Sure. Other than that, I have no other report.
Okay, City Attorney.
No report.
Okay, hold on. Petitions from requests from public present. Would anybody like to come up and address the commission again about something? Okay, no? All right, so let's go down the road. Mrs. Hare, anything from the school
Yes,
board?
I do have a report. If you remember our last meeting, I didn't go through this document, and I said that I would summarize it for you, and so I will do that quickly. And I'll pass it down. It's the 2017-18 accommodation plan for the schools, and I will go through and very quickly tell you the different sections and pass it to you. Please let me have it at the end of the evening. There are 8 sections in that document, and they're using that document to project for the school system for the next year. And Mr. Lindeman, that is my contact, documented that and put it together. So the first section is an overview. Section 1 is an overview, and it's tabbed on the side, so it's very easy to look through. And that's a summary. It's the introduction and the summary, and it also talks about the different sections. And so the next sections are the documented sections. So section 2 is the balancing the enrollment to capacity. And so we're talking about capacity in the schools. And so the criteria and the requirements and the policies are in that section. Section 3 is the actual 2016-17 school capacity. So that shows charts, grades, schools, classrooms, dates, and the capacity. Section 4, 2016-17, it talks about enrollment, attendance, and boundary analyses. It's the feeder schools for the schools that are in each section: elementary, middle school, high school, and the charter schools. Charter schools are in there also. Section 5 is the enrollment projections for 2017-2018. And that talks about the projections for the capacity and enrollment. Section 6 is the relocatable classrooms, and there are 17 of them in the system. 2 of them are set aside for moving. So that has to do with the capacity, and that's where the need is, and if it's a high capacity, and they'll move them there. Section 7 is historic student enrollment data, and so they look from 2005 to 2006 to 2016-17, so you've got history there. And the projections for 2021 and 22. So that's in charts, and so they're color-coded, and you can see them when you get back in that section. Section 8, and the last 8 is last section is a large area. It's the Graphic Information System, or the GIS section, for the elementary schools and the middle schools and the high schools. and it has enrollment analyses for the 2016-17 and for 21, projected for 21-22, 2000. And that's true for each of the section. A is the capacity, B is the elementary schools, C is the middle school, and the last section is the high school analyses. And that's basically what that document is talking about. And it's very easy to read. So each school board member has a copy of this, and of course, the supervisor has a copy of it. I was happy. This was the first year. I think I've been on this commission for four or 5 years, and I've never gotten one of those before. So I was surprised when he mailed it to me. Spent some time in the 2 weeks that I had it looking at it. There's a lot of good information in there with numbers of enrollment. And you can see in the south area where the enrollment is the heaviest, and our area is the lightest, but our area is getting a lot of renovations in the school, and I read that document telling you what renovations they were doing during the summer. And so a lot of money was spent up here this summer. And that's basically it.
Thank you very much. I know we've been thinking there's several meetings back. And
yeah.
Okay, Vice Chairman, do you have anything you'd like to say or?
No report, and again, I want to support you folks and hope that you succeed going forward.
Okay, Secretary Chambers.
Nothing.
Okay, Member Ritchie.
No, I heard that there's a Panera Bread coming in. Is that correct?
We don't have any plans under review, but
I heard
it
it
could
from a
just be a
very high
rumor.
source, but just wondered.
I just had a question. What is going by the old with Kim's Donuts? What are they building there?
It's an urgent care facility.
Urgent care?
Yeah. Okay. I believe it's going to be called MedFast. On our site plan, it's called MedFast. I don't know who the provider or anything is, but it will be an urgent care center.
Okay. Yeah, right next to the high school.
Was it Checkers?
Yeah, it used to be a Checkers years ago, and then they tore it down. And so, and what's that zone there? I mean, if they could put urgent care there.
I don't know off the top of my head what the zoning is there, but it was appropriate, or we wouldn't have approved it. But I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. Vice Chairman.
Do you have anything more to report on that Taco Bell building that's half standing on US 1?
Yeah.
They have been issued a site plan and a building permit for that property, so they could start construction. However, no activity that I'm aware of has started yet, but they have the approvals they need from the city to move forward with that project.
Are they going to tear down what's left?
I'm not sure, to be honest. They would either tear down or it would be incorporated into the new building.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, they had that before. So you're saying they still have it, or?
Still have what?
I mean, they had a site plan and they had
a demolition permit whenever they originally started demolishing that building.
And
but
they
didn't
went above 50% and.
Correct, and so that triggered a more intensive review. And so now the site plan and building permit that were necessary to build that property back how they wanted it have been issued by the city.
Okay, good.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Good. And that was all I had. And
Is there anything more going on with the old Kmart? Are they moving forward on that?
A site plan was submitted just under 6 months ago, and the city staff sent comments back to the engineer, and it was to convert it into the indoor storage like they were talking about. But we have not received any revisions based on the comments that we sent, and the code allows up to 180 days for someone to respond. If they don't respond, it's, I think, the first or second week of next month. If we don't receive any revised documents back, that site plan will basically expire, and so they'll have to start from scratch. But they were active, and then now it seems that they're not. But they do have a little bit of time that they could submit revisions before it technically expires.
That's the place where they were going to make a storage?
Correct. They were going to convert that
Facility?
building into indoor storage, yeah.
I have a question about Titus Landing. If you remember the site plan, there was a large, on the southwest corner, plan for a nice restaurant. Did the developer decide not to build that?
It's still on the site plan. It's just, I believe they just don't have a tenant yet. They were waiting to build the restaurant until they secured a tenant for that, so that they didn't build a restaurant that wasn't usable by whoever they ended up getting to go in that location. But it is still marked on the site plan as a future restaurant.
Okay, great. Good. That's good news.
See, I was going to say, so I went to the new pizza place a couple times. Not part of my diet, but especially now. But man, that's awesome. I was really impressed. It was like a combination between Subway and a pizza shop, and a real great staff. And so if you guys haven't had the opportunity to visit it and you like pizza, it's Pizza Ad, or what's? It's the pizza place on, what's the name of the, Titus Landing, yeah. So.
That's in a new mall, isn't it?
Yeah.
They wish they would have gotten a bigger place.
Yeah, so, and then we're adjourned. Thank you.